Hello, folks. Thanks for joining Framsia Online. Good evening if you watch us live from European time zone. Good day of time if you watch us from other areas of the world. Now that's absolutely possible. I believe this is the first online event by Framsia, and hopefully not the last. It really depends on you, on your feedback. My name is Maxim Salnikov. I'm based in Oslo, Norway, and I'm one of many organizers of this community. What is Framsia? This is a gathering of Norwegian web front-end developers. I hope that many of you visited Framsia meetups in person when it was possible. Right after it becomes possible again, we will be happy to invite you to our on-site offline events, but now we have what we have. And by the way, before we proceed with the agenda, I would like to ask you to tweet, not to tweet, but to write on YouTube live comments where you watch us, which country, which town, and maybe which community are you watching us from. Really interesting. I know that the core audience, of course, is from Norway, where the roots of Framsia. But again, now we are online and we welcome developers from around the world to our events. Let me invite to the stage my big friend Domenico. Hi, Domenico.
Hi, Maxim.
So we are both organizing communities here in Oslo, Norway, where we live. I mainly organize events dedicated to Angular. Dominica, what are you doing?
Hi everyone. My name is Domenico. As Maxim said, I'm one of the organizer of some of the front-end meetup here in Norway, in particular the React.js Oslo meetup, and Maxim invite me to try to revive this meetup and try to make it one of the biggest one. And we have two exciting talks in today. And myself, I'm a developer, so whatever is about development, I love it, and I hope you will enjoy, as we are really looking forward to these two speakers. I hope you will enjoy these talks, and thank you very much for spending your time here.
Thanks, Domenico. Yes, so Domenico is running the largest React meetup in Norway, maybe in Nordics, with thousands of members. Also, behind the stage, we have my big friend Majid, who is representing Vue.js community of Norway. He set this infrastructure up, and by the way, today we supported by the local Google developer groups from Oslo and Bergen, who kindly gave us chance to use their streaming studio, this StreamYard account. So this today's event is real, true collaboration of many parties from technical communities, and please bear with us, and it really depends on you. Will we continue or not? We always look for the speaker, so you'll find the pinned message with link to super simple CFP form. Don't be shy. Just share your idea, what you want to present to the technical community, and we'll organize event like this. Okay, now it's time to introduce our dear speakers, and yeah, let me invite both of them to the stage. Hi, Elad. Hi, Amit.
Hello.
If you just tell a couple of words about yourself before we start technical sessions. Elad, you start.
Okay, I'm Elad Shechter. I'm based, living in Israel. I'm working as a CSS HTML architect. It's meaning that I'm kind of a front-end developer that does mainly CSS and HTML, something more unusual in our industry. And I manage the CSS Master Israel community, that it's a community on Facebook that have 6,000 members, and I love to talk and speak and write articles, everything about CSS, of course.
Great. What about you, Amit?
Yeah, well, I'm from Israel too. I've been a web developer for just over a decade now. I specialize in CSS, specifically CSS animations. If you ever seen my code pen, then you'd know everything that I can animate. I'm trying to with CSS. I always love to learn new things about CSS, and I hope you do too. That's why we're here.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. And by the way, today's event, 99% happens because of Elad and Amit, because they proactively contacted me. And I decided that it would be a really great chance to give Framsia a second life. Please be like Elad, be like Amit, contact us. Let me put the CFP on the screen again. Yes. So this super simple URL, and also we have Framsia Twitter to stay updated about next events. I think we are ready to start. So see you later, Amit, Domenico, and let me add the slides from Elad to the screen. The stage is yours.
Amazing, amazing. Let's start. So, as I told you, I'm Elad Shechter. I'm working as a CSS HTML architect. I'm the founder of the CSS Master Israel community. I'm writing a lot of articles about CSS in medium.com, and I love to speak about CSS in every conference and in every meetup. And today, we're going to talk about the responsive design best practices. I started to create responsive design website in the year 2012 after I started to work at the Walla News company. This is a really big website that has millions of pages and a lot of mini website, and I needed to create in my first time a responsive website. And like every web developer, when you want to start to learn something new, you are Google on it, and I Google on it, responsive design best practices. And to tell you the truth, I didn't find anything that I liked. And because of that, I started to think maybe I need to create my own method for creating a better way to work with responsive design. And let's start to explore responsive design. The first important thing before you're writing any single lines of responsive design of code in the CSS, you need to think about how you want to organize your CSS. And I see that a lot of web developers are creating the big CSS scene. What is the big CSS scene, you may ask? The big CSS scene is that you don't care about the CSS. And when you don't care about CSS, you are starting to get a CSS spaghetti code. Like in every programming languages, if you not organize your code, you're starting to get a spaghetti code. But in CSS, it can get the worst from all the programming languages. The CSS is starting to be like a huge file of cascading style sheet that nothing is readable to understand. You're just throwing their selector. You don't care about the order. And when you want to put some new style, where you put them, because you cannot understand anything in this code, you put them in this bottom of this huge cascading style sheet. And after 2 or 3 years, the code is becoming to be so unmaintainable that you're thinking that maybe you need to create all the CSS again from scratch, because to use this CSS, it's really mission impossible. Okay, then, how can we organize our CSS in a better way? I still think in the end of 2020, one of the best way to organize our CSS is to use one of the CSS preprocessor. I'm using the SAS preprocessor, but you can use any CSS preprocessor that you want. And when we are using the CSS preprocessor, we can separate our CSS ideas into separated CSS component files. And yes, we want to work in CSS in components, the same way that you are working in JavaScript in component, in server-side in components. And all the people that you are working with need to think in components, even the web designer, even the project manager. In this way, we are having a lot better dialogue between us, and we can create a lot better project for our own company. And after we separated our ideas into small component CSS files, the code becoming to be a lot more readable. This is a lot less lines of code of CSS, as you can see here in this example. This is the breadcrumbs component that I think I written 3 years ago. And if we remove all the comments from the beginning, this is only 15 lines of code. This is very short. And yes, I'm from those web developers that writing properties in one line. I think that this is a lot more readable. And yeah, I know that when I'm saying this specific sentence, a lot of web developers think that I'm a little bit crazy. And maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but this isn't the point. The point is when you are looking on an old CSS code files, and an old CSS code files is a file that you written maybe 1 week ago, 1 month, or 1 year, it doesn't matter. You're starting to forget the structure of the CSS. But when I'm writing all the properties in one lines, I can see in a lot easier way all the CSS selectors. And all the CSS selectors are the first thing that you want to find in an old CSS files. In this way, when I'm looking on this specific component, I can see all the selector, breadcrumbs, breadcrumb list, breadcast item, and in this way, I can even understand the structure of the HTML that I'm not seeing right now. And I'm reading the CSS file like the L letter in English. First, I'm searching the CSS selector, and then I'm starting to read all the properties from the left side into the right side. But the most important thing that I want you to take from this specific slide is to separate your ideas into separated component CSS files. You want to write properties in one line, go and do it. You don't want, don't do it. It isn't the most important in this specific talk. And now let's continue to our next thing. In the responsive design on the web, we have two big methodology. We have the desktop first methodology and we have the mobile first methodology. Let's first understand why these both methodologies exist. The desktop first methodology, why the desktop first methodologies exist. In the beginning of the web, if you are forgetting, we didn't have smartphone devices. We have only desktop devices. And we got so used to create first the styles for the desktop that when the first smartphone came to the world, it was looking for us, let's create first the main website and only then to create all the adaptation that we need to create for the narrower and smaller devices. And this is the first reason why to work with the desktop first methodology. And in the beginning of the web, maybe you not remember it, we needed to support browser for the desktop screen like Internet Explorer 7 and Internet Explorer 8. And this both old browser didn't support responsive design major rules. And because of that, one of the ways to support this both browser was first to create the style for the desktop screen, and only then to create all the adaptation for the smaller narrow device with a major rule for mobile devices. And those are the reasons why the desktop first methodology exists. The second methodology is the mobile first methodology. The mobile first methodology is saying another thing. It's saying that the easiest layout to create is on the mobile. And if you think about it, the layout of the mobile is very simple. It's just boxes under boxes under boxes. It's very easy to create a layout for the mobile device. And in this way, if we are creating first the layout for the mobile, we are creating a lot less overrides in CSS. And overrides in CSS are very evil. And I know that in the beginning that you learn CSS, everybody teach you that you can do overrides in CSS. But it doesn't mean that it's good to do overrides in CSS. And I will show you in this specific talk a lot of ways of how not to override CSS styles. And in this way, if you are creating first the layout of the mobile, we can add styling the bigger and bigger screen of the layout, and in this way to override a lot less CSS. The second reason why to use the mobile first methodology is that we can maybe only load the CSS of the mobile in separated file, and in a bigger and bigger screen to load another CSS file that create this more complex layout in the bigger and bigger screen. In this way, I can load maybe a little bit less CSS for our mobile devices, and maybe to improve a little bit the performance in the mobile devices. I'm not using this second method of separating to separated CSS files according to the device screen, but those are the reasons why the mobile first methodology exists. Okay, then, we have the desktop first methodology and we have the mobile first methodology. Which is better? Let's save this question for the end of this talk because I want to surprise you with my own answer. But now, let's continue to our next thing. Where to put the CSS media queries? Let me first think where you are putting the CSS media query. You have the huge cascading style sheet file, yes, that no one can really understand and read. And where are we putting the CSS media queries? In the bottom of this huge CSS file. And what is the problem to put the CSS media rules in the bottom of this huge CSS file? We are having here two problems. Because when we want to do some changes in the CSS, for example, we search class name that we have in the HTML, we copy paste it, we search it in the CSS file, we find it in the top of this huge CSS file, we update the style in the top, but we forget that we have the same class name in the media rule in the bottom. And every time that you need to do some changes, everything is breaking you on your responsive website, and it's becoming to be very frustrating. The second thing is if you want to update a class name, you have the class name in the HTML, you change it on the HTML, you search it on this huge CSS file, you find it in the top, you update the class name in the top, but you're forgetting again that you have the same class name in the bottom. And every time that you need to create some changes on your CSS, it's becoming really like a mission impossible. Always that you do some changes, something is breaking you again and again and again. How can we solve this specific problem? It's very easy to solve this problem because now we are working in component files. And when we are working with the SAS preprocessor, we can just put the media rule inside of every one of our components in this way. For example, here I have the basic style, for example, of the mobile. And here I have here this media rule of the tablet and the desktop screen. And in this way, I cannot forget that I have a responsive code for this specific component, because this is very small file, and I'm seeing the regular style in the beginning, and I just see all the media rules just after all the regular CSS code. And the second thing that we are earning here, in regular CSS, vanilla CSS, we cannot put media rule inside the class component. We cannot do it. But the SAS preprocessor understands what you are trying to do here, and when you compile this specific SAS file to regular CSS, it will take this both media rule outside and will put the class name inside these both media rules. This is the SAS before it compiled, and this is the CSS after it compiled. You see the media rule got outside, the class name is being duplicated to here and here. And in this way, you cannot forget to update the class name inside the media rules, because you need to update them only in one place. I'm updating them here, and it will automatically duplicate it for all these media rules of this specific component. And this helps me a lot how not to afraid to work with responsive design and components. But this can create me another problem, because now I have the same media rule in all of my components. And maybe I have 70 component files. What is the problem that I'm using the same media rules in all of my components? Let's talk about it. Here you can see that I have two components, component A, component B. In all of my components, I have the same media rules. This is the way that I want to work in responsive design. But in a real case study that was happened to me, when I started to do responsive design in the year of 2012, in one of the morning, the web designer came to me and he told me, you know what? I don't like that the responsiveness of the tablet screen is starting in 551 pixel. Can you please change it to me that it will start in 500 pixel instead? And now I need to take all the 70 component files and to change the media rule from 551 pixel to 501 pixel. And beside of this, I need to change the smaller media rule from 550 pixels that it will finish in 500 pixels instead. And if I have 70 component files, I need to go all over them. And if I'm doing some mistake in one of the component, I will maybe see this mistake in the code that the CSS doesn't work correctly, maybe in 2 weeks. It's really mission impossible to really do it one by one on 70 different files. And this is really a problem. How can we solve this problem in a very easy way? Because we are working with the SAS preprocessor, we can put the media rules in SAS variables, as you can see here. Here I created a media rule with a SAS variable for the mobile with the name of break1. Another media rule for the tablet screen with a SAS variable with the name of break2, and another media rule for the desktop screen with another SAS variable with the name of break3. And you may ask me, if it's kind of a mobile, tablet, and desktop, why I'm not calling those SAS variables just mobile, tablet, and desktop? Why I'm calling them break1, break2, break3? And to tell you the truth, in the beginning, I called them mobile, tablet, and desktop. But then I understand that there isn't such thing as really mobile device, tablet device, and desktop device. Because a good responsive website is a website that's fitting to the size of the screen and doesn't think if this is a mobile, tablet, and desktop. In one of the morning that I was going to my work, the project manager came to me and told me, you know, the website, the responsiveness look amazing in mobile. Really, all the mobiles looking amazing. But when I'm rotating the screen, I'm seeing the tablet mode. And this is a wrong dialogue that you don't want to get when you are working on responsive website. And it can get even more worse. Think about it. This day, when we are using iPad Pro in landscape mode, it's a really size of a laptop. And this day, you can use the iPad Pro with a keyboard. What is it? This is a tablet or this is a laptop? And this day, we have laptop with touchscreen. This is a laptop or this is a tablet? And what about all the folding screen that we are now starting to get? What is this? This is a smartphone or this is a tablet? You don't want to create this wrong dialogue. A good responsive website doesn't try to figure all the type of the screen that we are using, because this day we have thousands of type of screen, and you don't want to try to figure all those type of screen. And because of that, I changed those SAS variable because I didn't want to create the wrong dialogue that we are talking about mobile, tablet, and desktop. And I will still keep talking with you with mobile, tablet, and desktop, but only that you will understand me in a better way, that when I'm saying mobile, I'm meaning small screen. When I'm saying tablet, I'm thinking about mid screen or medium screen. And when I'm saying desktop screen, I'm meaning big screen, but that's it. And you can give it other names if you want, small screen, mid screen, big screen, but don't use mobile, tablet, and desktop because you cannot understand what a wrong dialogue you will create in your own company. And after I put all those media rules in those specific SAS variables, I now just need to implement them in all of my components in this way. You can see the media rule with the hashtag character and the curly brackets, and I'm just putting the SAS variable inside. And in this way, if I now need to change one of the SAS variables, I change them in one place, and it's affecting me all of my component in a very easy way. Nice. And now let's continue to our next thing. Let's talk about open or closed breakpoints. If you don't know these terms, feel good with yourself, because I was creating those terms when I was writing an article in 2015, responsive design best practices for big projects. And a lot of developers really loved this specific article, and they started to ask me questions from where I took those terms, because I understand that when they read this article, they search on Google those terms to see where I took them, copy paste them, but I didn't took any terms, because when I wrote my own article, I needed to explain some ideas that I have in my mind, and I didn't find all those terms that I needed. And because of that, I started to think to create my own terms that I'm doing quite a lot in these days when I'm writing articles. And if you love this term, it's good. And if you don't love them, what to do? They are now 16 years in the web, and I'm not going to change them. And now let's talk about what is open and what is closed breakpoints. Open breakpoints, it's a media rule that has start position, for example, minimum width of 500 pixels, but doesn't have any end. This media rule will target screen of 500 pixel, 700 pixel, 2000 pixel, and infinite up. It's an open range, yes? Open one. A closed breakpoint has a start and an end position. For example, minimum width of 500 pixels and maximum width of 1000 pixels. This media rule is targeting only screen between 500 pixels to 1000 pixels. For example, this will affect screen of 500 pixels, 700, 900, but not more than 1000 pixels. This is a closed range of breakpoint. Okay then, which is better to use in most of the cases? Open breakpoints or closed breakpoints? Let's talk about why open breakpoints can be very dangerous when you are doing responsive design website. This is the example that I took from the Guardian website. And in the beginning of the responsive design, this is one of the successful example to see a huge website that was done in responsive design. It was built in the mobile-first methodology that's saying that the first style are written for the mobile and using only open breakpoints. And what is the problem with open breakpoints? As you can see here, we are first creating the style for the mobile, but in bigger screen, we are overriding the style of the mobile. And in a bigger screen, we are overriding the style again and again. And in a bigger screen, we are overriding the style again and again and again. And we have a lot of overrides. And you may ask, what is the problem with doing overrides in CSS? Everyone do it. No? What is the problem with overrides in CSS? When you are debugging the code in the huge screen, and you're seeing all these overrides, with all this crossline, the code becoming to be very hard to understand. You don't understand why this specific style is being override, why this style is coming from here, why this style is affecting and this style it isn't affecting. And this is really an easy example to understand because I want you to understand the problem. But in more complex things, you will see that you cannot understand anything when you see all this crossline with all those overrides. But this is the smaller problem. The bigger problem that a lot of time when you're creating a responsive website, you don't want to use the same style that you have in the mid-screen range in the bigger screen. And one of the time, the company will tell you that you need to change the style only in the mid-range major rule. And you will put here padding of 20 pixels. But this padding will affect all the bigger and bigger screen. But the company didn't ask you that it affect all the bigger and bigger screen. And every time that you need to do some changes in responsive design website, you're doing one change in the narrow screen and it's breaking you all the styles in the bigger screen. And this can be very frustrating and very hard for a lot of web developers to work with an open breakpoint. Because of that, my recommendation is to work mainly with the closed breakpoint in the narrow screen, and only in the last major rule to work with an open breakpoint. What does it mean? Let's explain it in an example. Let's say you want to create a major rule for the narrow screen. You can create a major rule with max width of 500 pixels. This is affecting screen between 0 pixel to 500 pixels. This is a closed range. The second major rule can be, for example, between 501 pixel until 1000 pixel. 501 pixel until 1000 pixel. This is still closed range. The last one will be with an open range. Minimum width of 1001 pixel, and that's it. But it's open, but it doesn't affect on the mid and the small screen. And the mid doesn't affect on the big and the small. And the small doesn't affect on the mid and the big screen. Interesting. But sometimes we need the same style, for example, for two ranges. What if I need the same style, for example, for the mobile and the tablet, but not for the desktop? What now? I need to copy-paste the style from this major rule to this major rules? We don't want to copy-paste CSS styles. How can we solve it in a very easy way? If you didn't know, major rule can get the comma sign. And in this way, I can use two major rules for the same styles. And now, if I want to use the same style, for example, for the mobile and the tablet, what's the problem? I can create a major rule, break 1, this is the mobile, comma, break 2 is the tablet. And in this way, I'm using the same style for the mobile and tablet. And what does it exactly mean? It means that if I have the major rule of break 1, it's checking if this major rule of break 1 is correct. If it's correct, do me the style here. If it's not correct, check if this major rules of break 2 is correct, and again, do me the same styles. And it can get even more better, because one of the things that my company asked me to do, and let's talk about this example. In the desktop screen, I had a component in the side of the website. And let's call this component common box, yes? And the side is very, very narrow, yes? And we are talking on the desktop screen, the component is in the side, and it's now very narrow. But in the tablet mode, all the side is falling under the main content. And now they are both big when I'm looking on tablet. And when I'm resizing the screen again for the mobile device, again, the component is now small. And the company asked me to do the same style for the mobile and the desktop, but different style for the tablet. And now it's very easy to do it. Major rule, break 1 mobile, comma, break 3 desktop. This is affecting only on the mobile and the desktop. And different style for the tablet, no problem. Major rule, break 2 for the tablet. And now the style of the tablet doesn't affect on the mobile and the desktop, and the style of the mobile and the desktop doesn't affect on the tablet. Kind of encapsulation power that we got here with our closed major rules, breakpoints. Interesting. And now let's go to the question. Which methodology is better? We have the mobile-first methodology and we have the desktop-first methodology. Let's first think about what is exactly the mobile-first methodology is saying. The mobile-first methodology saying that we are writing the first style for the mobile without any major rules. And in a bigger and bigger screen, we are or adding CSS or overriding some CSS. The desktop-first methodology is saying the opposite thing. We are first creating the style for the desktop screen without any major rules, and in narrow screen, we are more overriding CSS or adding some CSS. Which is better, mobile first or desktop first? Before I will answer you, I want to show you another real case study that I was working on in the Walla News company. This was the design of the main navigation of the website. It was looking this way on desktop screen, and it was looking this way on the mobile tablet screen. And this is the same HTML, my friends, but the design is very different. And in the beginning, I wrote this in the desktop first methodology, not because I wanted, only because I needed to support in the beginning, in the 2012, Internet Explorer 7 and Internet Explorer 8. And the code in the desktop screen without any major rule was looking very good. But when I was needed to create the code for the mobile tablet device, in the major rule of the mobile tablet, I needed to do tons of overrides, a lot of overrides to change this style into these styles. And the code of the mobile was really impossible to read, even for myself that I wrote it. And if I needed to change some style in the desktop view, this style was affecting me on the mobile, and every time that I need to change style here, it's affecting me on the mobile tablet, and the code in the mobile tablet was breaking again and again and again. But from the beginning, I understood that even if I wrote it in the mobile-first methodology, it isn't good enough as well. Think about it. If I'm writing the style of this without any major rule, the style of the mobile-first methodology, I'm writing the first style for the mobile tablet device without any major rules, it means that this specific thing to get it on the desktop screen, to change this style to these styles, I will now need to do a lot of overrides in the desktop major rule. And when I will change style here, it will affect me on the desktop screen. And understand that no matter which method I'm using, the mobile-first methodology is not good enough. And the desktop-first methodology isn't good enough as well. How can I solve it in a better way? And I had in my mind an idea. And after 2 years that they told me that I don't need to support anymore Internet Explorer 7 and 8, I really wanted to build all the specific component again from scratch with my own idea. And I wanted to give it a name for my new solution, because mobile first is not good enough and the desktop first for sure is not good enough. And what was my new solution? I called my solution the basic first methodology. And what's the basic first methodology saying? Think about why they created the mobile first methodology. They created the mobile first methodology because the desktop first isn't enough abstracted, and the mobile first is more abstracted. But sometimes the mobile isn't enough abstracted too. And I want to create the basic layer. And the basic first methodology is saying that only if we need the style for all the screen sizes, only if we need the style for all the screen sizes, we will put them without any major rules in here. But in this specific example, in this specific component, I don't want to create any common styles because the styles are so different that I didn't want to create any common style between of them. And what I've done, I created the style for the mobile tablet view, and I put them encapsulated in a major rule of break 1, break 2. And if I put it only the style of the mobile tablet in this specific major rule, and I didn't create any other style, not here and not in the other major rules, when I will resize the screen from the narrow screen to the big screen, in the desktop screen, I won't see any style for this for the desktop view because I didn't create anything, and the style of the mobile tablet doesn't affect on the desktop. Interesting. And now I took the style of the desktop screen, these styles, and just put them encapsulated in the major rule of break 3 of the desktop. And now think about how much it's fun to work with responsive design in this way. Because now, let's go again here. If I'm changing this style, they don't affect me here. If I'm changing this style, they don't affect me here. I don't need to do overrides, because when I'm doing inspect element on the mobile screen, I'm seeing only the style of the mobile tablet. When I'm inspecting in the widescreen of the desktop, I'm seeing only the style of the desktop. I'm seeing only the style that I need. I don't need to do overrides. My code is a lot more clear to do some changes. I don't afraid to do changes in responsive design. And yes, in every component, you need to create this thinking again and again, because in other component, maybe the main style will be without any major rule, yes? Because maybe you need the same style for all screen sizes and you will put them here. But in this specific component, I didn't want to create nothing that is connected between the screen sizes, because the style was so different, the design was so different that I didn't want to create any common style between of them. And this is a really huge power that I want you to take from this specific talk, the basic first methodology. And let's talk about the main key takeaways. First, the most important thing, separated your ideas into separated CSS component files. Prefer to work with close breakpoints in the narrow screen, and only in the last big breakpoint, of course, we need an open one, yes? And think in basic first. If you want to create common style for all the screen sizes, do it without any major rules. But if you see that you need to create something specific style for only some of the screen sizes, don't try them without any major rules. Because in this way, you need to override and to do a lot of stuff that isn't really look good and doesn't work good for you to work in a project. And I asked from a lot of web developers to see some of the websites that I was created in this way, but a lot of them already compiled to regular CSS, and you cannot see really to see all my Sass code. Because of that, I created this free code pen, and you're all familiar with this website, but this code, I created it. All the HTML, all the Sass code, you can really find and to see how I'm working with Sass and HTML, and to see all the way that I'm working with the basic first methodology. All these code pen are fully responsive, and you can find them in this specific collection that I created on CodePen. I will of course retweet this presentation on my Twitter account when we finish. And if you want to know more about the basic first methodology, you can read my article in this specific link. You can follow me via my Twitter. I'm publishing only CSS stuff in my Twitter account. And you can find me in my Medium account. I'm writing a lot of articles. And you can see all my other stuff in my own website. And my friends, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Elad, for being with us. Really insightful session and very practical. So I think you gave really nice recipes to folks to keep their styles in order. And by the way, we have a mini discussion in the comments. Maybe while Amit is presenting, you could join this, and maybe we could take some key points from this discussion, key takeaways for the mini panel. And folks, please ask your questions, because right after Amit finishes his session, which will be second, and it will be quite a short one, so it's like a lightning session. We'll have mini panel both with Elad and Amit, and we want to get questions from you. Just type your questions on YouTube live comments. So Elad, see you very soon on speaker panel, and let me add Amit to the screen. Welcome back. Welcome back. We are looking forward to seeing your slides.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it will be, as you said, a lightning lecture, roughly 15 minutes. Shall I start?
Yes, the stage is yours.
Yeah, okay. So, hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. So, yeah, the concept of Conic-gradient is not new, but now it is finally supported in all major browsers, and it's great. So we'll see what it's all about. But before I start, let me introduce myself. I done it in the beginning, but I'll do it again. My name is Amit Sheen. I've been a web developer for just over a decade now, specialized in CSS, specifically CSS animations. I'm currently working as a senior front-end developer at Payoneer, and if you want to get in touch with me, just hit me up on Twitter or something. So, Conic-gradient, the newest member of the gradient family. If you ever used gradient before, you probably already know the linear gradient, which is a transition of colors from left to right, or top to bottom, or even angled. And the radial gradient that starts at a single point and spreads outward from that point. And now we have the conic gradient, which is a transition of colors rotating around a specific point. The color scheme that we see here on all three circles is the same. In linear, it transitions from left to right. In radial, it starts in the center and spreads towards the edge of the circle. And in conic, it starts here in the top. This is our starting point. And rotate clockwise. It's always clockwise, making a full rotation, 360 rotation back to the top. So where are we using conic gradient? Just like other gradients, we can use it in the background image property, and we'll talk about the syntax later on in detail. But first, let's see what we can do with conic gradient. And as I've said, we're using conic inside the background image property, so we can use it as background, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. But if you do use it as a background, you can actually create great patterns. This is a pattern I've stole from MDM just because I like the option of creating a chessboard with just one line of CSS. Here's a type of zigzag pattern I've made with 2 lines of conic gradient. Here's another one I liked, again with only 1 line of conic. But you can use conic for much more than just background. For example, basic shapes like this triangle. And yeah, I know there are other ways to create triangles in CSS, but because this is actually a background image, so you can easily add content inside the triangle, unlike triangles created with borders, and you can have that content overflow the triangle, unlike using clip path. So it's nice. And you can also create more complex shapes like hexagons, my personal favorite shape with just 2 lines of conic. And you can even go farther and create icons like this double chevron, for example, or types of arrows. By the way, a couple of things I will not get into today since we won't have enough time. I'm only focusing on things and shapes you can create only using conic gradient. But if we mix conic with radial gradient and linear gradient, the possibilities are endless, and you can make any shape you want. And the second thing is, since this is all just pure CSS, it will be extremely easy to animate and manipulate these shapes. Now, I'm not going to get into the animation, but just to see that it is possible, I've made these simple spinners using conic, obviously. And all I'm doing here is to animate the start and end angles of the conic. We will see it in action in a few minutes when we'll talk about the syntax. But let's go back to our examples. And the most obvious thing to do with conic gradient is pie charts. I've heard the question, how do you do a pie chart with CSS so many times? And here's the answer. 1 line of CSS and we have a great pie chart. I've actually taken it a step further and made 2 small demos based on conic gradients. You can see them if you go into my code pen. Here. The first is a pie chart generator. You can add segments or remove segments. You can change the values. You can change the colors. And everything rendered to one background image of one conic gradient in background image. Of course, I used some JavaScript to control the inputs, but all it does is to render this conic gradient. There is no canvas, no SVG, nothing, just one object with conic gradient. The second thing I've made, based also on conic gradient, is this dial graph Same idea, you can change the values, you can play around with this slider, and everything rendered into this Conic-gradient background. I've added more gradient just to play around with the visual, but the concept is the same, and if you want to see the full code, as I said, it's all in my code pen. So let's dive a bit deeper and talk about the syntax. Now, I'm going to divide it into 3 parts. We have the from, the at, and the color list. I'll explain what each of them means and how it works, and I'll start by saying that the from and the at are both optional. You can use them both or just one of them or none, but what do they do? So we are using the from to set the angle from which the rotation starts. I've said earlier that the rotation starts at the top, that's our 0 degrees, but if we want to start at 30 or 60 degrees, this is where I define it. And we use the at to set the center point of the conic. Around it, the gradient will rotate. Let's see it in action. Yeah, so here we have a simple conic with 4 colors, red, yellow, green, and blue. And we see that the red starts at the top at 0 degrees. If I'll change the value of the from to, let's say, 90 degrees, we can see that the conic has rotated 90 degrees. Notice that the element itself didn't rotate, it just affected the conic. Of course, you don't have to use the degrees unit. You can also use like turn, for example, or to use radians and so on and so on. Let's get back to 0. The at gets the same values as the background position property. So I can change the center to let's say top left, and we can see that the center point of the conic is now in the top left corner of the element. Again, we can also use here a percentage like this, for example, and we can also use pixels and EMs and so on and so on. But let's get back to center. So the next part is the color stubs, which is actually a list of all the colors that we want to use and their position inside the rotation. So again, let's get to the example. Right now, I've just defined the colors without any stops. So the color is divided equally inside this conic. But if I'll add like 90 degrees to the yellow, yeah, and we can see that the position of the yellow is now at 90 degrees. We said that 0 is the top, so this is now 90 degrees. And everything else, of course, change accordingly. I can also add a second value, and by doing so, I can define a range to the color. So if I'll add 240 degrees, we can see that the red starts at 0. From 0 to 90, there is a transition to the yellow, and the yellow goes from 90 to 240 degrees. We have a full yellow because this is what I defined here. And after that, it transitioned into the green and back into then to the blue. I can also set a position to the green. For example, let's set 240 degrees to the green too. And now we can see that there is no transition between the yellow and the green because the yellow ends at the exact same angle as the green starts. Of course, I can add a position to the red and to the blue, and I can add any color I want in any position, and that way we can create a perfect conic that we want to use. By the way, now you can see how easy it is to create a pie chart using just CSS, just one line. And one more thing, I'm going to get rid of the steps here for a second. If we want the conic to be continuous, if we want to get rid of this line up here, all we need to do is to end the color list with the same color as the first one. So in this example, I'm going to add red, and now we have a continuous conic. Okay. Now, last thing I want to talk about regarding the syntax is the color hints. If we want to, we can set the transition midpoint between two colors using a hint. I'm going to explain it in a second, but to make it more easier, I'm going to just use two colors, red and yellow. We can see that the transition between them, between the red and the yellow, is equal, and the midpoint is right here in the middle. But if we want to change it, all we need to do is to add another value between them. So let's say again 90 degrees. And we can see that the midpoint is moved to 90 degrees. I do have to say that I don't see a lot of people using color hints in gradients in CSS, but if you need to, you can. Yeah, so radial conics. Just like other gradients, we can use repeating conic gradients where we need it. The syntax in general is the same. So let's get back to our example. If I'll change this property, this conic gradient, I'm going to add repeating conic gradient, and you can see nothing has changed. But if I'm going to add, if I'll add a stop to the left color, for example, 30 degrees, this happens. Yes, the conic actually takes the first and last color stop of the color and copies it multiple times to fill in the rest of the gradient. Everything else, the from, the at, the color stops is the exact same syntax as the non-repeating conic. But this way you can do let grade sunburst and I don't know, whatever you want. Yeah, we're getting closer to the end. A few words about accessibility. The short version is it's not. Assistive technologies like screen readers don't get any information from background images and can't read them. So if you use conic or any other gradient to create pie charts, checkerboards, icons, arrows, and so on, make sure to add a proper semantic fallback for screen readers. Otherwise, your content won't be accessible for a very large percentage of the public. Yeah, so last slide of today, browser support. As we can see, we already have full browser support. I'm obviously ignoring Internet Explorer, as should you. The last major browser to jump in was Firefox, that started supporting conic gradients 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago with the release of version 83. And now it's fully supported, and we can absolutely start using conic in production. Yep, that was Conic Gradient in 15 minutes. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions about conic or gradients or background images or CSS in general, feel free to contact me. I'm always happy to help, and I love to talk about CSS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amit. That was really practical session, and I'm super inspired, to be honest, by starting using conic gradients. And okay, let me return Elad to the screen. Yes, so folks, let's dedicate I don't know 5, 10, 15 minutes to mini panel. We had many discussion in our YouTube live comments with Nicholas about his thoughts on how to use these breakpoints and how to think about devices with their possibilities or sizes. So thank you very much, Nicholas, for sharing your opinion. Elad, do you have something to add on this discussion?
What is exactly the question that it has in his opinion? I didn't understand the question that I saw in the comments.
Well, it was not just not a question, but more topic starter or discussion direction. He mentioned that most phones don't support property media equals handheld. So like properties which are not about form factor of the device, not about the size of the screen of the device, but how can we use this? So, for example, handheld is one possibility, and yeah, to be honest, I don't know other option names for this, but this could be interesting approach, right? And this way you do no longer think about sizes and pixels or kinds of devices like you mentioned, Elad. You support pretty much all possible variety of these devices.
First of all, you saw that I'm using the magic queries in Pixel, and I'm using them in Pixel because if you will try to use EM, that you see that it doesn't do anything. It doesn't look on the font size at all. And because of that, I'm using Pixel because this is the best way to create the sizes of in Pixel. But you need to understand that this day, Pixel are not really a pixel. The thing that a lot of web developers are starting to forget, we have these days the thing that is called CSS pixel, and we have the device pixel, and there are two different things. And in the responsiveness, I'm working according to CSS pixel. In other stuff, I'm using, of course, all the other ways that we can use other units. But in the responsive design, for my experience, one of the best ways still in 2020 to use pixel because the other doesn't do anything. EM, you will change the font size on the root HTML and it will don't do anything. Because of that, Pixel, from my experience, is the best way. Today, we have a lot of other media rules that you talk about them. To tell you the truth, I didn't experience a lot. I didn't experience almost with them. But there is one that is very interesting. We have these days a media rule that can support dark mode. And in this way, you can create a media rule that's checking if you have a dark mode, and you can work with, for example, with CSS native variables for colors, and to update only the native variables in the media rule of the dark theme, and in this way, you can affect according to the dark mode. This is one of the most interesting things that we got in the last 2 months or year, that I think it's one of the most interesting things that we can do with dark mode. This way, it's kind of creating an application in the website that looking if you are using the dark mode in your own operation system and to affect the colors. This is nice.
That's really good, and I'm a big fan of dark modes. I turn them on pretty much everywhere where that's possible, and of course, if the website is smart enough to recognize if your device is using dark mode, it's the best. It's the best.
I agree. I think all the web developers want to use dark mode in every place because they are looking all the time on the screen and their eyes are getting tired. In dark mode, you're a little bit less tired.
Yep. The next question from Nicholas again. What do you think about Tailwind CSS framework, Elad? And maybe Amit, you also could add your opinion.
This is Amit, you want to answer?
Yeah, I think we have the same opinion, so I'm going to let you handle it.
Okay, Tailwind. To tell you the truth, I have a lot of talks how I'm creating CSS architecture. This is one of them, but only I'm touching here the responsive part. But I have a really my own vision how I'm working with CSS architecture. I have my own CSS architecture. And Tailwind, I really don't like it. I think Tailwind, a lot of web developers like it only because they don't really want to learn CSS. And what they are doing, they're creating a selector for every one of the CSS property. And in this way, the CSS is not a mess, but the HTML is really a big mess, and they cannot understand what is the component and what is this. As it's just taking the mess from the CSS part to the HTML, but it's still, from my perspective, a mess. And this is a problem that I think because front-end development is really huge these days, and I see that a lot of front-end developer, they are more taking the part of the JavaScript, and because they don't have time for the CSS, they're searching a way how not to learn CSS. And I'm not from this person. I'm from this person that want to learn CSS and to create the best architecture. And this is a problem that we have now in the industry, because a lot of web developers don't want to learn CSS. And I really think that in 2020, maybe it's now the best time to separate it to more titles of jobs. one that is more JavaScript and one that is more CSS, and we'll have a better world at the end.
Yes. So to summarize your answer, you actually have your own Tailwind, right?
It's not Tailwind is a utility class based component. It isn't so components. I love to create a more component based architecture, like you saw my component of breadcrumbs. And I'm still using sometimes utility class in my own framework, but it's really for small things. For example, I have a utility classes starting in my architecture in the letter U, and I have classes like UHide. What UHide is doing only one operation. For example, display none. UHide doing only display none, and it's always been written with the important because when you are using the UHide, you want it to be hide. No matter what. If you don't want it, remove the class. And if you want to use the UHide only for a mobile device, for example, I have, for example, another class, UMobile hide, and it's with a major rule that's affecting only the break one, for example. In this way, I'm doing exactly what I want, and if I don't want this specific style, I remove the class. And this is class that the JavaScript need to put or remove when you want it. In this way, I'm controlling the style.
Got it. Amit, do you have your opinion on Tailwind?
No, as I said, we actually talked about it, man, a lot. We agree both on the reason a lot of front-end engineers focus today is, they don't even learn the basics. They just go and learn the frameworks, and then they're looking for excuses not to learn CSS. And every so often something new comes up, like now it's Tailwind, so everybody says, "Oh, it's so great." But if you really know CSS and you have your own restart and your own normalized files, you don't go to work with these libraries. I checked it out; it's nice, but I will never use it in my production.
By the way, to elaborate on CSS frameworks like utility-based versus component-based, I was surprised to find that Bootstrap is doing well these days. So after some quite a long period of complete silence, they are releasing version 5 quite soon, I believe. Now it's in alpha or beta, I don't remember. I recently wrote an article on the Practical Dev blog about how to use this in combination with Svelte, and now finally they got rid of jQuery. They use pure JavaScript, and yes, they use all the latest and greatest CSS features, but I think it's really great start for at least prototyping. Maybe again in production, if this is really custom project, after all, you will struggle more with Bootstrap rather than using these benefits. But for prototyping, it's one of the best. And I remember well how, I don't remember how many years ago, but Bootstrap 3 made the real difference on the whole web front-end market globally. I think many websites used this one, and I remember the days when you open some URL and you see this blue glow around inputs. Oh, another Bootstrap-based website. So, folks, I encourage you to check Bootstrap 5. Maybe this could be a good option for you.
No. Bootstrap is it's maybe good for people that don't love CSS. I'm thinking that if I need to learn Bootstrap, it's more easier for me to do all the CSS from scratch and not to use Bootstrap. But this is only me, and it's good that we have all these choices in life. Tailwind, Bootstrap. It's good that we have choices. Choices is always good.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, there is very interesting. It's not a framework, but more approach called BEM, from a Russian company called Yandex. It's another approach to build your own CSS framework. Maybe Elad, Amit, you know about this one?
both work in BEM. BEM, I think of it not as an architecture platform, but more as a naming convention. And as a naming convention, we are using it because I'm using it also in my work, in my day job, and in my private projects. I think it's when you work with SAS or SCSS, it's much more easier when you work nested to work with BEM convention. And if you work with other developers, so it's always nice that you have a constant convention, and BEM really has a nice one.
I'm in this part. I'm working. I have my own CSS architecture, and I'm taking some ideas from a lot of architecture, little bit from the BEM, and a lot others, and I created my own way that I would love to work with the architecture. I don't like in the BEM the minus, the underscore, and because of that, everything with in my architecture, the naming is only one minus, and I have some beginning letter U for utility, entity starting in E, state classes starting in the is word, is open, is closed, and I have a lot of ideas that I'm now working in with my own architecture. But BEM, the idea of BEM, it's very good. It's more in my mindset, but I'm writing it a little bit different from regular BEM.
I also have to say that I sometimes just use this underscore instead of two because I don't understand why two. But mainly my personal projects. When I do it like for work, I write BEM like it should be.
Good. Okay, folks. I think we had a really interesting discussion. At least I enjoyed that so much. So nice to chat so deeply about CSS, because this is foundation of pretty much all modern web UIs, and since everything goes to web these days, CSS is here for a long time. So that makes total sense to learn it, and to learn it on a very deep level, to understand how all the frameworks, either utility-based or component-based work, to be able to customize this, to extend it, and after all, to create your own architecture, like Elad, to create your own framework. Now, folks, I just want to say thank you very much to our dear speakers and to our dear attendees. Let's stay connected. Please, folks, submit your call for papers to Framsia to be on that stage during our next event, maybe mid or late December. And have a great evening or day or morning, depends on your time zone.
Well, we're just 1 hour after you.
Thank you, Maxim, for having us.
Yeah,
we finished the translation, so see you soon on the next events. Bye-bye.
Bye.